Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Voice of Dr. Yan. I'm your host, Dr. Damon Yan. In this episode, again, we welcome our regular guest, Edward Hochland. He will join us to discuss a lot of issues happened these days and share his insights on cognitive warfare as well as unrestricted warfare. And before we start the conversation, of course, I still need to briefly introduce Edward to some audience who may not be familiar with him. I know most of my audience should be very familiar with Edward. So Edward Hochland is a retired federal senior executive and U.S. Air Force veteran. His over 4 decades of service including a service as senior leader in the intelligence community and Departments of Defense, Homeland Security, Energy, and State. He served as a senior advisor to several IC agency heads, the Assistant Inspector General for Inspections for the Intelligence Community, Chairman of CIA Strategic Planning, a deputy team leader of the INF on-site nuclear arms inspections in the former Soviet Union, and as a award-winning CIA intelligence analyst. He's currently an independent consultant focusing on cognitive warfare. He's also a regular host on the National Security Hour on the America Out Loud Network, and his new book, The Cognitive Warfare, What We Can Do and What We Need to Do. What we can do to solve the problem can be ordered from Amazon and America Out Loud. So I have another good news to tell you before we say hi to Edward. That is, Edward's Twitter, now the name is X account, is restored after I think around 1 year gets suspended. So now you can follow Edward on Twitter, on X. His handle is Edward Hochland, at Edward Hochland. Hi, Edward. Welcome to the Voice of Dr. Yan.
Well, Dr. Yen, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the plug on Twitter, but also thank you for being my first link back when I came to Twitter. It's amazing in America how free speech is either enabled or disabled by the Great Society. So look forward to our discussions today.
Thank you. So, sir, as we have discussed, that there is a great news we want to let our people to know about what happened recently. That is, when we remember several weeks ago, we have talked about the mysterious, illegal Chinese lab based in an abandoned warehouse at Ridley in California. And in that warehouse, during the from early this year to middle of this year, until they exposed the situation, inside they have storage like over 30 big fridges full of unclear chemical bioreagents and tons of the fluid, which you don't know whether they are the reagents or they are the human body fluid samples or what else. And also there are at least 20 types of danger potential infectious agents or samples storage inside without the hazard label, without proper storage, including HIV, malaria, and HPV, TB, whatever, I mean, COVID, this kind of samples, as well as almost 1,000 transgenic mouse. They claim that it was like $1 million, and it was designed and developed to carry the COVID variants. And somehow this lab, I mean, the name is PBL, they claim, PBI, they claim they are working on diagnostic kits for pregnant people and also for the COVID-19. And this is really, I mean, beyond the ridiculous things. And also, we have discussed the network behind this Biolab. At that time, we've talked about that United Front and CCP's United Front network, as well as CCP's Public Security Department, behind the huge business empire based mainly in China, in which PBI is just one of the overseas company on the stage. And we have talked about all this kind of risk, all this kind of harms, and we worry a lot. And on 19th October, DOJ has issued one file that it announced the main person behind all these things. His name is Zhu Jiabei, and he has several other names. He has Jesse Zhu as his name. He has also used David He as his name. So, this person, he's a Canadian Chinese. Now he is by the FDA in our enforcement team, and then he is facing 3 years. As they said, according to the complaint, he's facing maximum of 3 years in prison for the misbranding charge and 5 years for the false statements charge. So publicly, Jesse Zhu, this actual controller behind the huge business group as well as the illegal biolabs in California, I am the first one publicly discover this person and talk about his role. So his business empire include biotechnology, cattle, the cow industry, as well as even the transportation, international transportation, as well as immigration service based in China, mainly to Australia. In China, without government and public security support, you can never touch this field. So, sir, first of all, what do you think about this arrest news? And also, do you think this guy, 3 years plus 5 years maximum in prison is enough for this person as what he has done? And also, can you tell your opinion, share your feeling with our audience based on this news? Thank you.
Well, no, thank you very much, Dr. Yen. So first of all, it's great. And you deserve a hearty congratulations. You did identify this man. And I'll go into some other, because what it speaks to the effectiveness of your network in passing useful information to highlight key issues here in what's happening, not only in America, but what's happening with the CCP and their efforts here to subvert and undermine America. It also currently highlights another set of weaknesses in the Xi regime, from my opinion, as a dictatorship, as it indicates he has enemies. The people of China are showing their disdain for Pooh Bear, or others in the CCP may be seeking his chairmanship. Regardless, that's great work that you and your network have done. But now our national security apparatus here in the United States should be learning these things, using these insights to advance effective disruption of these efforts and complicate things for Xi and the CCP. Now, you mentioned 3 and 5 years. Well, that's a good start, but what was the purpose? To what objective? To what impact? Were the mice, as you said, because they didn't need them to do the COVID materials, what were the purpose for the mice? What were the purpose for the 20 dangerous pathogens? And what is the purpose of this warehouse, which is basically a central depot for a larger network? Is it terrorism? Is it domestic terrorism? Is this man being charged with that? Maybe not yet, but the question for me will be is, if not, when? And what are they doing? The second obvious question for me is, this man was on the radar, I hope, of the FBI, our intelligence community, or the Department of Justice. But I don't know that. So the question is, if not, why not? I mean, you did your research and identified this man and his CCP affiliations. But our national security apparatus either did not or did not wish to expose it, or there's a third option, that they were completely inept and not paying attention. Any of the latter three cases is significant cause for concern from my perspective. As I've noted before, FBI Director Christopher Wray a year ago noted the FBI was opening counterintelligence investigations on Chinese potential spies every 8 hours. And then Matt Olson, the director of the National Security Division and head of the counterintelligence element there, canceled the program supposedly over political correctness, BS about concerns of Chinese citizens feeling harassed. But since then, as we've talked numerous times in this program, what have they replaced it with? What have they replaced it with? And so what is not addressed in this court documents are the 20 plus pathogens you've identified and the warehouse and the critical aspects of what's this for? What are they using this warehouse for? It's a central depot. So back to you, Dr. Yan. So that's my initial thoughts on this, but congratulations on helping to oust this character. My hope is that our national security apparatus had this individual and his network on their radar, but I'm not so sure.
Thank you, sir. So let's talk more about Jesse Zhu and his bad history in the business. So according to the research about Jesse Zhu, I mean, you can see a lot of complaints and lawsuits against him and his various companies. He has so many companies, one by one. And most of them from the beginning, it's difficult for you to trace back to even Jesse Zhu. But after you check the whole network, you will identify, okay, actually this is a new puzzle in his business empire. Just he doesn't want to show his name in the list, and he just want to be the big boss behind the curtain. So the most famous things online about Jesse Zhu before this was that he was working with, at that time, back to 1990s to 2000, he has a cattle industry. I mean, basically it's based in Canada and also China. And he used the cattle industry, it's called IND. He established the collaboration with U.S. Colorado industry, and that industry called XY LLC. It is an innovative that kind of reproduction industry. They develop the innovative reproductive technology to help to select the better livestock offsprings for the provide more benefit, more profits for the market. However, Zhu and his team and his company, they have stole the technology, stole even samples, and bring it back to China as the other business or academic agents always do under CCP's instruction. They successfully make the XY LLC lose a huge amount of profits. So XY sued and his companies for compensation. In 2014, Jesse Zhu was, he lost the case. So he was supposed to pay XY 8.5 million Canadian dollars, which means almost 7 million US dollars. But Jesse Zhu rejected to do it, and immediately his business was either filed bankruptcy or transferred to other people's company or purchased by other Chinese business. And then Jesse Zhu started the long-term lawsuits against XY. 2 years later, Jesse Zhu lost another case, so he need to pay XY even to over 200 million US dollar at that time as the fine. But still, he didn't do that. And according to one of the documents from one court, Jesse Zhu was recorded to that he talked to his company staffs that what they need to do is to manage to make more lawsuits to waste XYLLC's time and energy and money, and because XY already lost a lot of money, and so if they can make it longer enough and make it more intensive, more aggressive, so they expect XYLLC would have no time to handle their own business. And according to that evidence, Jesse Zhu believe one day he will use this tactic to get XYLLC in a short, in a very low price, because he said when XY cannot manage their business well, their price, they will maybe sell the business, and the price will be low, and we don't need to pay the fine. We can just purchase this industry. At that time, everything can be solved. So, sir, I mean, do you think this is some individual behavior? Or according to your opinion, I mean, I believe this is an academic and business agent case that we are talking for a long time, and we know there are so many cases. But what's your opinion about that? When you see these things happened, and when you see this guy, and we know this guy again have new business doing the virus things, infectious pathogen things, transgenic animals illegally in the United States, what do you want to tell our audience?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So one of the key things that I'd ask our audience to do is, if you haven't listened to Dr. Yen's show on the Voice of Dr. Yen, go back and look at these episodes with respect to this illegal weapons lab, because it's critically important. Because what we've been talking about here is China's unrestricted warfare without any humanity towards others. They're willing to kill and murder whoever they need to, including Dr. Yen, to make their point and get to their point. And so we have to keep that in mind, because this is not just a front company, in my opinion. Okay, this is a overall strategy with a well laid out plan, because you have multiple companies involved. You have a single individual at the top. He has points of contacts that are helping to facilitate these actions out the United States and Canada and other places. And so for my initial questions is, why haven't we mapped these networks, as you talked about? And you've identified some of these aspects, and you've mapped some of these different networks. But why haven't we mapped these networks? Because this is a systematic plan to take advantage of our laws and our gaps between our federal, state, and other bureaus to go in, steal materials, set up companies, false companies, or even real companies. But then, as you said, drive them either into bankruptcy or just steal from them and leave them, let them sue, and let the companies fail because they know they can't be touched if they're back in China. And so where is the effort, as I explained in the cognitive war, why we are losing and how we can win? Where's the effort to map the information environment here and map that fuller network to understand who are the points of contacts, how broad this network is, what different industries they may be tied into that we haven't even identified yet? And given China doesn't just have this one individual, but several million people involved in trying to do the same thing here in the United States, Houston, we have a major problem because they're doing this right under our noses. And the weapons lab, the bio lab in California, was discovered by accident. The question I've raised in our prior discussions applies here. Why is it the FBI not able to shut down these Chinese efforts? I mean, what the hell? What have they replaced their counterintelligence efforts with? Christopher Wray talks a lot, and he talks about China the threat, but it doesn't seem to take and walk the walk and take the steps necessary to address this real threat. So one has to ask, why is that? So they may be doing things behind the scenes, and counterintelligence is a tricky business. I understand that. But here you have multiple examples that you and your network have brought to the forefront here, that the American public should be getting at least weekly, if not monthly, updates in terms of what's the status of this? Where else were those pathogens going to and from? Who else was involved in the network? Is it tied to the cartels? Is it tied to the ISIS and other terrorist elements who've crossed the border, the 1.5 million gotaways? Is it tied to the military-aged men from China who came here claiming asylum, but as you and I know, there's no way they can come here without getting the funding and approval from the Chinese government? Is it because we have a Manchurian president who's compromised? That could be. Is his cabinet compromised? This is very concerning that Americans should pay attention to, because in the past we've had similar type episodes with Russia and the Soviet Union, where our government was infiltrated, people were blackmailed, and they caught. So let's be real here. You know, the Five Eyes Network came together recently, as you had shared with me, to talk about this. They came out with a statement condemning what's going on here and saying this is alarming, this is a threat. Where the hell have they been? This has been going on for the last 2 decades plus, and the network put into place for over this time here. And so a lot of big fluffy words about threat and stuff, but what's actually doing? So this is my concern, is that China has been waging a very effective cognitive war using multiple different means, economic, political, social, medical, military, and others across the United States to subvert our society, doing it very effectively, and we remain stuck in a reactive posture. Dr. Yen, back to you, sir. Back to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Yes, you've mentioned that Five Eyes conference recently, in which we want to let our audience know a little bit more about this conference, because clearly, if you connect this event with what they're talking in the conference, you know, this is not isolated, not a solo case. Actually, it is one of the typical example in China's intellectual property safety in the United States. So on 17th October, the Five Eyes countries' intelligence chiefs came together to accuse China of intellectual and using artificial intelligence for hacking and spying against the nations. In a rare joint statement by the allies, U.S. FBI Director Christopher Wray said the unprecedented joint call was meant to confront the unprecedented threat China poses to innovation across the world. China has long targeted business with a web of techniques all at once: cyber intrusions, human intelligence operations, seemingly innocuous cooperate investment and transactions. Every strand of that web have become more brazen and more dangerous. The Chinese government, of course, dismissed the allegation as a collective misinformation campaign. So based on this, let's see what else have been discovered by the investigation about this California illegal biolab. So in one report by Epoch Time, they have raised another big concern. The lady, Miss Ginsley Harper, who's a code enforcement officer with the City of Ridley Fire Department, she discovered and reported this PBI biolab in the warehouse at the beginning and involved in the investigation from that time. According to her, she said, this could be happening all over the United States. It's been an eye-opening experience realizing the many cracks in our government for these types of organizations to fall through, and also realizing that the government is not our first line of defense. Ms. Harper said, these types of under-the-radar entities can purchase a lot of chemicals and a lot of biological easily, and no one is watching over them to make sure they know what they are doing. We have to make sure these labs are not able to come here until there is oversight. So, sir, we have around 2 to 3 minutes before we finish this section. So, could you let people know what do you think about this when you hear these words from the first line investigator as well as the threat is posed by China to us?
Well, so great question, and she's spot on. So first question I would have for not you or the audience, but for our government here is, where the hell are our FBI, Department of Justice, the National Security Agency, Cyber Command? Where's the Five Eyes in our strategy? Where's our plan? It's not it's not as if this just started. It's been going on for a couple of decades, right? And so this is one of the primary reasons I call out in my book for the complete overhaul of our national security system, because we don't plan ahead. And Ms. Jessalyn Harper's comment, this could be happening all over the United States, is spot on. And it probably is. And it goes back to my earlier comments and questions that we've had, not just today, but prior, is how big is this network? How far is the reach? Because when you take a look at the Mexican cartel, the Chinese in this effort, they have a network that looks like the vein structure of a human being going up throughout the United States major cities. And if you have these pathogens, you have military weapons, you have the funneling of fentanyl and other stuff, you start to understand this isn't just a one-trick pony, as you're trying to highlight, Dr. Yen, and very adeptly so. So what can America do to fix the cracks here? Well, first of all, we need a complete overhaul of our national security system. China is obviously using the fact that we don't plan, we have no strategy, to its advantage. They're using the fact that we have titanium cylinders of sub-excellence to subvert our society. But we also need to fire Attorney General Garland, FBI Director Christopher Wray, and Matt Olson. We need to get some people in there who can actually do what's necessary. We need to hold to account Manchurian President Biden and his family, because we have to find out is what were the payoffs and stuff. Are they in simple terms, part of the compliant, complicit, and corrupt? We need to develop a long-term strategy and drive a whole of government, whole society efforts. That is, if it's not already too late. The lack of any real strategy to drive China and our adversaries to react leaves us wide open to continued penetration, abuse, and subversion. And the corruption of our national security apparatus, in my opinion here, is causing great concern, where we may be seeing recent events around the world wagging the dog. But I'll hold that thought and other aspects until we come back from break, Dr. Yen.
Thank you, sir. So let's have a short break, and we will go back continuously talking about the issues you would be interested in. And thank you.